Let's talk a little bit about the Montblanc evolution, if you will. You know, the evolution of the brand and also the evolution of the products that Montblanc is offering. I mean, you started out as a luxury purveyor of writing implements, and now you've really expanded to a whole host of categories. Talk a little bit about that and where you are now with the products.
The roots was clearly writing instruments. In 1906, we were established as a maker of, and we like to call it writing instruments because it really was a technical tool. It was something which lasted until the, I want to say, 1980s as an item which people really needed every single day to, you know, do their job, to communicate with each other. It has changed since then to become more of an accessory. It certainly still has an important function, but surely not to the same extent as it used to be back at the beginning, the first 50, 60 years. So we became the icon of the art of writing, which I like to say, if you look at that black Meisterstück writing instrument, the fountain pen, which became a symbol for the art of writing. And in fact, it's actually at the Museum of Modern Art here in New York. That changed then as we have built that brand and became that leadership. We evolved and it changed a little bit in terms of the landscape the business landscape.
As the necessity of the writing implement as a tool.
And there were a couple of things which happened in the 1980s. One was, and quite frightening to the brand and quite endangering the brand. First, the consumer changed, the computer arrived, communication moved from handwritten letters, handwritten everything. Accounting books were done by hand to a computerized system, number one. Second, the distribution changed. Until then, it gave the, there were these fine stationery stores, mom and pop stores on Main Street.
Right,
which
the retail location, landscape was very different.
That changed to first, initially, these superstores, Office Depots, Office Max, who went away again from being a specialized stationer to being a supplier of paper and office supplies. So with the consumer changing, distribution changing, we really had to ask ourselves, where do we go with that brand? What is our future?
Sure.
But we knew that writing was part of the essence of who we are as human beings. It dates back to the very early days of human mankind, if you wish. You could actually trace it back to the paintings, in the caves, which we found thousands of years ago. So we knew it will not go away, number one. But we also knew that there was something in a time of high tech, which we like to call high touch. We knew that personal communication became more important, where things were removing more and more on a day-to-day level from personal communication. And the second thing we really looked at, having been a craftsman, having been a brand who created by hand wonderful products, how can we extend that? And with a position of and an understanding of Montblanc equals I'm educated, I'm intelligent, I'm socially responsible, to grow that into other product categories, which we've done.
So clearly, though, you wanted, the goal was twofold. You needed to expand, you needed to create new categories, but you needed to hold on to the core brand essence at the same time, which I'm sure was not an easy thing to do. So how did you do that? And what products are you offering now, and sort of how did you maintain sort of the tenor of the brand throughout the
So we needed to survive. And we needed to craft our future. And one of the core questions was, do we go completely away from who we were? We could have, for instance, said Montblanc equals communication. Let's do computers. We arrived at the computer age. Why not doing a Montblanc mouse, a Montblanc notebook, a Montblanc gadget? We didn't want to go that way. We wanted to stay to the roots, and which we have done until today. We continue to be the global leader in fine writing instruments, but then with a white star, the symbol of the brand. And I'm very particular about it. It's not a logo, it's actually a symbol, because it's loaded with values which customers connect with our brand. We carefully expanded it, and I like to call that strategically the strategy of concentric circles. We put our roots proudly in the middle of our strategy. Rather than walking away from it, we put it in the center.
Right.
And we say we're growing from there. What would be logical extensions which consumer understands? There would be, for instance, writing pads, desk accessories, items which are in your daily life, which are somewhat connected to our roots, but take it a further step. The next circle which we made were accessories like men's accessories, cufflinks, key rings. We introduced leather wallets. So if you have a pen, you might have a cufflink, you might have a wallet. From there we went into large leather goods, briefcases. So the consumer could understand the evolution, and all of these products, and that is important for us, are superb products crafted by the hand, wonderfully designed, so that there were also not only an emotional link between these extensions of the brand, but also a clear visual and quality, a tactile.
In keeping with the luxury and the quality.
The luxury, which actually happened. We went actually, if you go back to the late 80s, our writing instrument, the essence of our product portfolio probably were like in the $60 to $100 price range. Today, our starting price point for writing instruments is $375, and it levels off in terms of writing instruments of $750,000. So it completely changed from who we were back there, while we kept the essence of the brand.
Now, meanwhile, you've been changing your distribution strategy, your retail strategy. You opened up branded boutiques, is that correct?
We have about 360 around the world.
Okay.
As I said, on one side, our traditional distribution was basically shrinking. Second, we've expanded the brand, and there was not one single point of sale where you could actually experience the world of Montblanc, which has a lot to do with customer experience as well. Seeing not only the product in the right way, experience the product, being serviced, being, learning about, what we do and the products which we do. So we started to open our own boutiques. Today, as I said, we have over 360 around the world. We also, our retailers, we changed, the mix a lot since these days, as to where we're selling to jewelers predominantly, and very, luxurious and upscale department stores. So
you're keeping control of the experience, the selling experience.
Key to brand management is controlling the experience, starting with the product, the craftsmanship, the quality, to the point of sale, to the communication. Yes, we have a pretty good grip on the experience of our brand, most certainly, yes.
So now let's talk a little bit about how your core consumer has changed, certainly post-recession. What are you finding as far as consumer sentiment, willingness to spend money on luxury products such as yours? What has changed with regard to proclivity of people to buy your products, basically?
There certainly was a very unusual, in hindsight, unhealthy development prior to the recession, which I, by the way, like to call disruption. Prior to that, there was a notion in the industry of democracy of luxury. Everybody talked about, we want to have high-priced products which is available to as many people as possible. Now, the first mistake I think the industry did, not so much Montblanc, but the industry did, was, luxury is not equal high price. Luxury is a true intrinsic value which has grown over time. Luxury, in my definition, are actually products which are worthwhile to repair. Products which you have, and this is not only, it's not disposable, but this disposable is not only a price point question of disposal, also an emotional attachment to it. So, people were buying luxury in what I like to call almost unconsciously. The consumption was unbelievable, and then came the recession, the disruption, and from these unconscious spending, we went into a tremendously cautious, it stopped. And even the customer who continued to have the financial means to enjoy finer things in life actually stopped as well, almost out of solidarity. What we see since the recession is that the industry, and with that as well, our own environment came back to the true world of luxury, and that is, to a certain extent, a discrimination to whom you sell, who your customer is. I think there is a revitalization of craftsmanship. We've always stick to, the notion of producing products by hand to the highest possible quality standards. I think the industry had lost that prior to the recession, and I think there was a coming back and understanding to, what are the basics of being successful as a luxury brand. So you see much more of a conscious spending today. Consumers are much more informed. They think about more than they did prior where to spend their money, why to buy it. They look for longevity in the brand, to use it not only for a long time, but also to hand it down to the next generation.
So how do you kind of keep that momentum going, and how do you continue to evolve, yet still stay core, true to your core values?
So the first thing is, when you look at expansion, we clearly define that our brand is timeless. It is handed down to the next generation. So we stayed completely away from fashion. There's nothing wrong about it, but it's a very different business philosophy. Whether you're, hot, hip, and fashionable at the moment, and you reinvent yourself, every season, or whether you have something which celebrates a significant moment.
And transcends all that, basically.
And transcends, exactly. So that's the one strategic decision which we've made. The second is you truly, so many companies talk about customer relationship management.
Sure.
I have CRM, I have a database, I'm sending out letters. That is not CRM. That is not, this is database management, and this basically sending out collateral and upsetting most of your customers, quite frankly, receiving all of these materials. It is truly about understanding the customer, giving them an experience, being there when you need to service the product, having values and having attached the brand to certain values and things which we do, which relate back to the customer. For instance, we do support the arts, we do support education for a very, very long time. Now, many companies have philanthropic activities as a marketing program.
Oh, and that's, not just philanthropy, but just in general, good works are becoming so core to what companies need to be doing in terms of their marketing.
You know what, for some companies it's a little bit superficial, and I think the consumer looks today, and here again, I think the digital age helps to create probably the most educated and knowledgeable consumer we ever had on this planet. So they look behind that. If you look at Montblanc, we were supporting it since 1906, since we were established, simply because of who we are. We started with writing, so we're connected with literacy, we're connected with writing, we're connected with education. So it really is not what we do, it's who we are. And I believe in today's world, when you work with a customer, having a brand of essence is what actually makes them appreciate it so more. And when they buy the product, when they enjoy the product, when they gift the product, when they hand it down to the next generation, they know that they hand down something which is much more special than the pure function, look, design, or feel of the product.
Sure. You touched on digital. What are you doing as far as, your media mix? How are you leveraging social media, for example, to connect with your target? Are you doing that at all? Or do you feel like traditional media is still sort of the most relevant vehicle for you? And then in addition, how are you working as far as e-commerce efforts, and how do you maintain that control over the buying experience in the online world? Let's
start with digital. In fact, there was a lot of talking with the recession about, the world changes, the country changes, the economies change. I think in the long run, not so much will change. However, I believe the media landscape, communication has changed forever. And I think the recession was only sort of a coincidental point in time, but it's actually, in my eyes, a very interesting marker and coincidence between the two. We are putting more and more effort on digital. I believe there will be a time where digital will be completely taking over all sorts of communication from print and other medias, simply because the fact that you can be interactive. And you see so many publishing houses today have a large, if not the biggest effort on the digital world, is because you can actually communicate on a two-way street with your consumer, with your reader, with the general public out there. So this has certainly changed. It has changed the skill set which we need in a company in terms of, you see, if you look at your different divisions and if you look at your people in the organization, the marketing world had to learn a whole new game, and that in a very short period of time, practically 7, 8, 9 years. Over the last 9 years, they had to certainly learn that. Now, on one side you have the communication, on the other you mentioned e-commerce. That was considered the biggest threat for luxury. For the longest time in our industry, we hoped and prayed that the internet would go away and would not take away, from our stores, which we have, created around the world. And there is actually a good reason why we were concerned about it, because retailing is experience. And it's not only luxury, retailing is experience. And if you look at some of the other retailing or retailers and brands, maybe the ones who are a little bit more mass, they're struggling in my eyes because they forgot about what retailing is and building that connection with your consumer. Now if you go back 4, 5, 6 years, the technology was not there to give a reasonably good experience in e-commerce. It were very rudimentary, very basic pages, and it really came down and here's a product shot, there's a price, there's a shopping cart. Today you can communicate more about the brand, you can, from a technology point of view, interact in a more sophisticated way. And so that has changed the game plan for us. We actually we went into e-commerce a year ago here in the US. I was spearheading it for the group. We're the first market to have done that worldwide, and we have been tremendously successful to connect. And it's not about pricing, because that was a second concern about not being able to create an experience. It's all about pricing, price efficiency. And we are a full price retailer, and we are a full price retailer on the e-commerce, and we are successful with that because we're offering, again, an experience. We offer product availability, we offer service.
So you're still able to kind of replicate that in-store environment?
Very much so, very much so. So we are very upbeat about that development, and we will see that this will not only grow, and it will become a core, core function within our organization. So we are very upbeat about it.
Challenges and opportunities as far as your global business goes?
Big time. As you know, for so many brands, but certainly for the luxury industry in particular. I mean, we have a global visibility. There are positives and negatives with that. There are fast-growing markets. You look at China, you look at India, you look at South America. China, as a matter of fact, we are very successful, and I find it interesting that the model which the luxury goods industry, in which Montblanc, as one example, has used, that it has not been followed by so many others, because the consumer base is so big. We look at China not as a source for products. We produce in Europe. We produce our writing instruments all in Germany, our watches in Switzerland, or less in Italy. But in China we sell. So there's a great consumer base. Now with that,
what are differences in the consumer base there that you find for the products?
We don't find actually, we sell the same products as a global brand with a global image. We sell the same products. In fact, there was a question of, should we try to make the products a little bit more Chinese? Should we try to adjust to their taste levels? The Chinese consumer loves the brands for what they are. They love the fact that this is a 106-year-old company, and they want the original products. So some companies made the mistake, not us, but some made the mistake of trying to change it to Chinese product portfolio. Don't do that. So we're selling our products as we sell them in New York or in Paris or in London. We're very successful with that. But the growth rates are very high, so you need to keep, and that's the risk side of it. I believe China has a huge long-term potential, but you need to pace the business, and you need to pace it on a global level. India, for example, has a different challenge. I think once they change their laws about retailing and owning retail operations in the country, I think the demand will explode there as well. South America, again, a little different in that, in particular, taxation and their import duty rules are hindering some of the brands to really establish and offer products in a meaningful way to their consumers. But by and large, as a brand, and that's what we do, we communicate a global image. We have a global presence. There is no difference if you go into any of our 360 stores. There is no difference in terms of the experience you have from a service point of view, from a display point of view, from a quality of the product or the quality of the after-sales service. So many of our customers, in fact, do travel around the world.
So you're trying to maintain that consistency.
And you have one voice, one brand, one image around the globe.